Brandon, I think a question over to you. If we are dealing with millions of data pieces all being collected, all from disparate sources, where are you seeing the biggest bang for our buck? Which part of the process, or is it standardized? Does it vary?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's. I think this is one issue that we come across where everyone thinks data analytics is one thing, and it's actually many different mechanisms that you can bring to many different problems. If I'm looking at trade blotter, I shouldn't be using a predictive coding engine in an e-discovery sense to find the relevant trades that I'm looking for. I should be using something that does pattern analysis on structured data, like financial records and phone records and that kind of stuff, right? So the use of different data analytics tools often is outside of the realm of what we would consider industry standard tools. And that represents a challenge that we run into sometimes where everyone's very comfortable with the e-discovery products that they've seen or the compliance products that they've seen and that they've worked with. But most of those still lend themselves to manual review of data. We're often having to reach outside of those general mechanisms, or that sort of general tool set, to draw in things that are going to help us sort of slice and dice data efficiently. And that obviously draws additional bias and additional skepticism. So I think when you're looking at bringing together millions of different data points, or actually probably trillions of data points in many of our cases, and making sense of them, it's not one size fits all, and it's sort of inappropriate to put a square peg in a round hole.
But if I could add on to that, I think what additional levels of complexity and challenge is that every company is different in terms of what they collect, what they have, whether it's a result of legacy systems that haven't been fully integrated, right? Every investigation is different in terms of what you're trying to seek an answer to, and that may change over time. And so all of those factors go into what is the technology we're going to use on the data that's available in reflection of what the regulator's doing, what the individual locale's laws may be with respect to data privacy or other issues. And that's part of what makes this such a complex area, but also, frankly, what makes it so attractive as a way to get to answers more efficiently and more quickly, and to get to the meaning in the data.
I think that there are more than two, but there are two types of ways of looking at tools. One is the older set of tools, and those tools were intended to make what you were looking at when you handed it over for manual review to be more likely to be relevant. It was intended or designed to reduce quantity. We now have other types of tools that either measure potential relevance, detect patterns, place different pieces of information in relation to each other to derive meaning that did not otherwise exist before, unless you were fortuitous and had the same group of people reading the different sets of documents and saying in an aha moment, I see this and I see that, and that means something, which is a unique skill and is still a necessary part of what humans have to do for the most part. But they're better at it if they can have a machine learn a little bit about how they think and replicate a little bit of their thought processes to get them a little bit closer. And maybe you want to talk to that a bit, because I do think that this concept of tools is very poorly understood, and people just think of this as an entire box of hammers.
Yeah.
I think there's a waterfall that you often have to bring to this kind of analysis. I was just involved in a case where if we had taken the old approach and not said, okay, let's grab as much data as possible, even though that sounds very scary, and in a very small matter, we very quickly got up to 7.5 million documents. But in a recent matter, we said, let's grab as much data as we can so we can narrow the field of what we're going to look at. We wanted more variables to come through than less. And in this one investigation, one of the critical emails that we found was actually a conversation between a third-party help desk and our rogue trader that wasn't in his data set, right? It was a help desk conversation. And why would I ever think that one of my smoking gun emails was that help desk conversation? If we had drawn lines and drawn a circumference around what was important to us, we wouldn't have found it. But what instead we said was, well, first let's begin with the trading data and look for information in the trading data that gets us to the points in time that we're interested in. Right. And then let's be indiscriminate to who's talking at that point in time. So first we brought together a structured data tool that gave us visualizations of that trading data over time. And then we looked at everyone that could have potentially spoke or had a connection to that data at that point in time, as opposed to going the other way around. And I think, looking back, I bet you I missed links not to have anybody open up any prior investigations, but I bet you I missed links that I would have otherwise seen if I'd taken a different approach. I think this speaks to your point, Wayne. The presumptions and bias that we bring to even singular document review. If I've reviewed 1,000 documents and they were all somebody's fantasy football league emails, and then I get one document that's about any trade, it doesn't matter what trade it is, that document becomes the hottest and the most relevant document to me I've ever seen. Whereas somebody's reviewing trading records all day, they'd look at me and scoff for even bringing it to them, right? So I think you have to bring a diversity of tools, and I think B, you also have to bring an investigative mind to how you're going to use that tool set.
What you just said that was of particular significance, because I've seen this replicated a lot over the last 10 years, is an analysis of structured data to assist you in taking a look at unstructured data, and the application of the expertise of the investigator to understand what is significant in the patterns that were seen in the structured data to analyze the unstructured data. And I bet you do that a little bit yourself.
Yep, indeed.